Hey, what's happening, YouTube? Wanted to go over my parameters under mission control for the ZOHD Dart XL plane. Give you a little view from the outside. Flight controller's tucked here in the center. This is where the battery goes up in the front. Currently don't have the DJI unit inside. It's just empty, but normally it would plug right into this harness. Figured while we have it on the bench, we can show you the little path I ran for the Crossfire, the TBS Nano Diversity receiver, I believe. So 90-degree angle, optimal. When you come in for a landing, it'll fold flat. So don't have to worry too much, and these are just some coffee stirring straws to hold the antennas outright. Pretty sturdy wing. Glued it back together a couple times. Have one more kit in a box I might put together. I've been through a couple of these. Crashed it in the nose as well, but glued it, put it right back together. So my flight controller is a little 3D printed quick disconnect. So with these little 3mm screws and a piece of plastic, there is some heat sink action in here. So I already loosened these in advance. But for those of you who are confused on how this is supposed to be set up, you kind of want to position your flight controller as close to the center of gravity as possible, so that way the internal gyro can, let's say, balance and correct the flight according to where the center of mass is, or at least where the air thinks it is. So right on top of this flight controller is going to be the serial output, and for those who aren't familiar with flight controllers, the UART is kind of like the USB to the computer if the flight controller is the computer. So on top, you're going to have actually 4 wires because there's a TX and an RX. That basically needs to line up to this TX and RX on this board, but it's TX to RX and RX to TX. So one's receiving, one's transmitting. That's like the T and the R. So make sure to reverse those, and then it's usually ground and then like a 5-volt or greater power as the second one, and then I believe it's their output 1 and 2 or 0 and 1 are going to be for TX and RX if you're running Crossfire, and you're going to need a remote with a TBS module in it in order to connect to this device. So assuming that you know how to pair that, you're going to see those radio control outputs when we're in mission control, or sorry, when you're in mission planner. But that's not really what this tutorial is covering. This is a general overview of how this guy's set up. So on the top end here, you could plug in some analog direct ports. That's why I kind of like this flight controller, because you have a lot of plug and play. I just had to extend this DJI VTX cable to get all the way to the front here. This other cable I have here is for the GPS. So this GPS is kind of nifty. It's tucked in here at the top. So you just kind of have to match the pinout of your GPS to the required pin on your flight controller just by looking up some manuals. On this Delta Wing design, I have throttle here in the serial 1 output, and then the left and right elevons, or I guess, yeah, because when ailerons act together, they're elevons. So those are going to be on 2 and 3 output, which I'll show you also in Mission Planner, which we get connected. And that's pretty much it. I had a or an airspeed sensor plugged in, but I didn't really like working with it. Had a little pitot tube, and I had it kind of glued into the front here. It's been bent a couple times, taken some hits, and you have like airspeed and or you have air pressure and differential pressure. This plugged in to the flight controller, but since we're not really doing that, we've disconnected. This thing acted more like a spear, and didn't really seem safe to fly. So a little 30 amp ESC. I believe we're running some China motor 800 kV, and the props we're running are a 254 by 127. That doesn't make any sense. No, yeah, 10 by 5 E. Yeah, I guess a 10 inch prop with pitch is 5. So let's plug this guy in. This has a little serial out to plug into the USB. We'll do that right now, and then we'll go over to the computer. Check out Mission Planner. So right now mine connects to COM9. Yours may be something else. You may have an issue connecting if you don't have the right drivers installed. So this is just automatically connects when I plug in. So you should get this Mavlink connecting. We'll just kind of go through the parameters one by one. At least how I think they're kind of supposed to be set up. I wouldn't say that the pitch tuning is the best. Talked about that in a previous video, but I could probably tweak it and improve it if I want to fly this plane. So North America is generally where I fly. We'll go to data, see if we're getting anything right now. It doesn't matter. If we're out in the field and we can connect to this flight controller via Bluetooth, I'm able to get this data while the plane boots up, and it can show an accurate GPS signal, but I'm only really going to do that when it's outdoors. If you're trying to set this up for the first time, you're going to kind of skip the planning. This is more for piloted or non-piloted missions. So you can have a couple of waypoints at different altitudes, and when you put it in auto mode, it's going to run that waypoint mission from start to finish. There's other videos covering exactly how this is set up, but you can really just kind of click around and add different spots. So if you write those to the plane, that's going to be the mission it thinks it needs to run. But that's kind of more advanced. If you're just trying to get your plane set up and running, you kind of just care about the setup and configuration tab. So you got to install the firmware. That's kind of the first get-go, and then you kind of make your way down here on the left-hand side. So you got to calibrate your accelerometer. I think it's usually this calibrate accelerometer button, not like simple acceleration. That's if you have to have like a really big plane. Just read the mission planner documentation. That's not my job to teach you everything. But I have experienced some issues having the internal compass calibrate with the GPS compass. So I'm just using the GPS compass, I want to say. I honestly don't know. I just use the one that worked, and then it'll figure out its own orientation. Radio calibration, you know that you got to run the calibrate feature. So as long as your Crossfire, your TVS Nano Diversity receiver is paired to whatever remote you have, you should be good to go. So for the servo output on this kind of elevon plane, you only have 3 outputs. So throttle, right now they actually have that in position 3. So let me correct that. Oh yeah, position 3, the serial 3 is going to the ESC here. 1 and 2, go to the elevon left, elevon right. And I adjusted their trim a little bit. You want to do this in Mission Planner rather than on the remote. You want your remote as trimmed to 0 as possible, whenever possible. Serial ports usually has to be customized by each person. I think like your flight controller manual should go over your recommended ports that you're going to plug those into. Some flight controllers have those hardwired, where you're soldering them onto the pads. If it's going to be a more lightweight board, but for this case, you have kind of a little more plug and play modularity. So serial 1 up here on top, that's going to be my RC signal. So it's going both ways, meaning it's sending back telemetry data to my remote, like altitude, airspeed, longitude, latitude, pitch, roll rates. There's a couple different things it's giving me in telemetry that I can display on my controller. Mavlink 2, serial 2, Not really sure. I think that may be the default setting. That could be how I'm connecting to Mavlink or connecting to Mission Planner over Bluetooth. So serial 2 or 6 might need just to be set up that way so you can connect to Bluetooth instead of just plugging into USB-C. So serial port 3, GPS, that's an important one. Just make sure that's labeled correctly. Airspeed, I had that plugged into 4. It's currently disabled, but that's where I had it set up. And then serial port 5, that's here on the front. That one's actually plugged into, or would plug into the DJI Air Unit 3 or 4. The wiring is the same, so you just have to make sure that you have the right spacing for that. The default foam block that comes with it works great for the 03 unit, and then you can find and modify your own 3D printed design to do for the 04 unit. That's pretty much how the serial was set up. ESC kind of left alone. Flight modes you're gonna want to set up. You'll map it to one of the switches on your controller. I have a 3-position switch, and I haven't quite figured out how to do a 6-position. So I really just take advantage of 1, 4, and 6 is how I have it mapped out. So auto, I'll have run missions if I want to switch into mission mode. Manual, if I want full manual control, you can go inverted. There's no limit to your rates. And then fly-by-wire, A, that's going to have some limits to your pitch and roll. And it kind of has a little bit of cruise control effect where it kind of helps keep the plane steady. I could be wrong, but that's kind of how I perceive it. So the failsafe, I don't think I even set it up correctly. I think I would want it on return to home. So currently, I believe my failsafe is set to return to landing. So just have your controller set and return to landing while you set this with the radio arm or with your controller connected. You can't do it right now because I don't have my controller connected, but current failsafe is return to landing. I don't have a hardware ID in this plane. Don't tell the feds. I don't have any optional hardware, and you might, but you're probably not watching this video if you do. My configuration, if you just want to look at what I have in parameters, you can pause the video here. I did want to change my PID tuning on the servo pitch, but I'm not going to do that right now. My onboard OSD, if you want to see how high I set it up here, we'll go to screen 1. I know it kind of glitches out sometimes in Mission Planner, but it does have the HD layout, so the 50x18. So I'll have some of my alerts and warning up here. So arming, power, I have home direction, home distance, longitude, latitude, in case this thing falls out of the sky and I need to go recover it. Ground speed, air speed, battery voltage, amps drawn, total amps drawn, and the list goes on. It's a little cluttered. I'm also gonna have that virtual horizon, and I've found it enjoyable to use it that way. Again, that's my user parameters. There's a full parameter list. The only thing I could recall modifying was the mixing. So in my case, I did a little bit of change on the mixing just so I could get more pitch authority. So I bumped mine up to 0.7 for the default 0.5. That allowed me to actually fly inverted. Without that, when it was too low, I wasn't able to fly inverted because I couldn't get the elevons to pitch in the same direction enough. So that's where you might want to change if you're flying a specific delta wing like mine. So hope this helped. This is basically my setup. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. Thanks.